Doggies, cats, fishes, and gerbils. It is currently Monday. The best day of the week is July 4th, 2011. And get this. It's Day 9 Daily number 317, and it is not Fun Day Monday. Originally, I intended to do 317 Sunday evening, but my internet was hit by eagles, interestingly. So I ended up thinking, when can I re-record that Day 9 Daily number 317? And I thought, let's do it at 9 a.m. Pacific. So it's 9 a.m. right now in my room. You can't tell because there's no natural sunlight in my room for you to have any benchmarks, and that is the way that the nerds like to live. I just have regular lights and the blinds drawn across anything that has nature on the other side. So we are going to be doing Terran Week starting right now. We're going to pretend it's Sunday. And this topic today is going to be about analyzing losses. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Later on today, actually, is going to be Fun Day Monday, where it's the StarCraft II Brood War Fun Day Monday. So you still have a few hours to submit to Monday at day9.tv. And then on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we'll be looking at Terran vs. Zerg, Terran vs. Terran, and Terran vs. Protoss, respectively. So it's going to be all sorts of fun Terran shenanigans and very manly manigans. So, there are, of course, the big announcements to make. I will be casting the North American Star League Finals this weekend with my brother and Artosis and Greetorpin in control, so go to nisl.tv. And I'm certain that there was another thing that I had to announce, and I did a good job of doing it yesterday, but F it. Let's go ahead and jump into the daily. So the coffee is going to be keeping me going as we introduce the topic of today, which is analyzing losses. Something that you'll see me do oodles is look at a game, let's say of a Terran player, if I'm focusing on Terran, and I'll say something like, isn't his strategy good? Look at how smart this is. He's the best in the world. And someone watching will go, oh, I get it. Oh, because Mickey Mouse tunes in regularly, apparently. Oh, I really understand that. That's great. But the problem is, there's kind of a disconnect there. You can look at what someone does that's good and kind of understand why it's good, and then when you're put into the actual game of StarCraft, you don't have a nice, neat, clean little box where you can execute that strategy that he did versus the strategy that his opponent did. You have to kind of think a little on your feet, adjust, and that can feel very, very uncomfortable. And as a matter of fact, the way that pretty much everyone learns is through analyzing losses. Whether you're doing it consciously or not, because I know the way you behave. When you win, what do? You go to your friend and you're like, dude, I crushed this guy, he didn't stand a chance. And if you accidentally had an overlord where a medevac flew by, you tell your friend, yeah, I knew he was going to be floating a medevac over there, so I put my overlord. You lie, you pump yourself up, you celebrate when you win. But when you lose, you do those subtle little inner monologues where you say, next time. I should have gotten that Roach speed upgrade earlier. Oh, next time I gotta get Roach Burrow. Oh, why didn't I research Storm with that Templar instead of morphing it straight into Archons? These sorts of things. You do little adjustments. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at 3 Terran games today, and the whole topic is going to be how do we not just see what this player did wrong, but try to see a way that we can look at our own replays, find out what we do wrong, so we don't do it again. Because a huge, huge, huge idea to emphasize is that rarely ever will you actually be in identical situations again and again and again and again. We have Huck here at the left, and we have our Terran player, Siege, at the right. Let's go ahead and go to the Terran cam. Rarely ever will you actually be in identical situations lots of times in a row frequently. More often than not, what will happen is that you will analyze a bunch of losses, which you absolutely should do, and then you will get a little bit of knowledge each time, and if you analyze maybe 10 losses, then in your 11th game that you play, you'll be in a completely new situation, but you can use a little bit of what you learned in each of those times to help you out properly. So you kind of end up bending your knowledge. So as I'm speeding up and slowing down Sidge, we end up seeing him plant down a barracks. This is all fine. And now one thing that is so important, I'm coming back to the main screen. And I don't have my glasses to take off because I'm wearing contacts today. That was disconcerting for me. The hardest lesson to learn in a game of really any strategy game, you must go to the first mistake and fix that. The first time the advantage seems to be slipping away, you have to find out when that is and fix that. It is a terrible curse that happens where you will play a 30-minute game. How did it happen? At the 10-minute mark, you made a critical... You know what? The 10-minute mark, you made a critical error that completely ruined your gameplay. There was no chance of you getting a win after that 10-minute mark. But what happens is when it ends, fresh in your mind is what happened from 25 to 30. Minute 25 to 30. And you're thinking, what could I have done there? Well, you need to ignore that and go back to the earliest spot and fix that. One player who is far and away the best I've ever seen by a long shot at fixing the first mistake is Idra. Idra just is incredible at just having this beautiful, harmonious, symphonic play for the first X minutes of the game. It's just nothing ever going wrong. And a lot of people will look at that aspect and say, oh, Idra has good mechanics. It's not actually the mechanics that's helping Idra succeed. Idra obviously has really, really good mechanics, but the skill there is continuously going back to the first mistake and saying, I don't want that to happen, popping that off. I don't want that to happen, popping that off. That's what we're doing a lot today. So we're doing lots and lots and lots and lots. So we have Sigi. SCVs are ready. So we're going to be looking for our first little mistakes that are going to be going on. And in this particular game, I can actually tell you that it's a 16-minute and 30-second game. You can't see because the obvious amazing Day 9 TV logo, thanks to Bernat, is covering up that overlay, so you cannot see it at this point in time. But because this is kind of a short game, we're going to watch it from the Terran's point of view. You don't have to watch your losses just from your point of view. You can watch it from like the everyone cam, and you can realize something like, oh, he early expanded a lot earlier than I thought. Maybe I need to do some sort of earlier scouting or something like that. But as we can see, as I limit myself to the Siege cam, to the Terran cam, he's going for a very typical expand after a barracks with no gas. So at this point, I'm not going to overthink it. He is already committing to this build. There's no adjustment that he should have made. You know, it's a big mistake. Perhaps one of the bigger mistakes you can make when you're adjusting is to see this nexus and to say something like, maybe next time I won't build a command center and I will just try to go 3 racks early so I can rush and kill that. Though that is true, notice that we are learning this bit of information long after we've started our command center. So at this point in time, what we have seen Siege do is go on autopilot at the start of the game. Correctly so. He just said, what's my build? I'm going to do that build. Boom, there we go. Easy peasy. And then he sees this, and his question is now, how does he fix it from this point on? Now, I'm going to suggest something that's actually kind of hard to do because your instinct is to cheat. When we look at our production tab, I have the production tab open just so we can get a sense of what Terran is doing. Less so we can actually compare it to Protoss. I want you to try to ignore the Protoss and just focus on what our little Terran buddy is doing. So, questions I'm going to be asking myself right now are things... Oh, by the way, there were 2 in the harvester, or excuse me, 2 in the refinery, and he put a 3rd one in. That's kind of a bump, but I wouldn't call that like a huge mistake. I wouldn't worry that much about that. You heard me say something like, go back to the first mistake that you ended up doing. Something like that is like obvious. Like, herp, I got supply blocked. Let me obviously make sure I don't do that. But what I'm seeing right now is no add-ons going down for the barracks. Now we see an add-on going down. I'm going to be kind of sensitive to this because if there's a battle that occurred later on, I'm going to come back and say, well, was it because I didn't get my stim early enough? Was it because I didn't get my combat shield early enough? So we're seeing Siege do some very nice control. This is good stuff. Just trying to do the dance. He's doing the dance. Trying to get his mariners positioned accurately. Alright, he's building SCVs. Continuing to watch, and it looks like we're going to have a Ghost Academy go down. This is interesting. Now, there's generally, you'll see Terran players go for 3 barracks, then build a factory and get the starport with the 2 reactors on it. That's pretty typical. As we can see, a factory costs only 100 gas, so he could have easily done that. But lately, we've been seeing a lot of Terrans think to themselves, well, this drop harass isn't working as well. I'm having a little bit of trouble putting pressure on Protosses who are just early expanding and doing this sort of thing. So they have come up with these Ghost Academy pushes to try to deal damage. That's a little bit of the history of this. Is this good or not? I'm going to be just a little bit sensitive to this. Just going to be aware. Notice, nothing really that out of the ordinary going down. I'm saying things like maybe I could have built my orbital command to my expansion earlier, something like that, but I'm not going to make any judgments yet. I'm just throwing out possibilities for me to go back and look at later. This tech lab, it came down a little late. Was that good or bad? This Ghost Academy, it went down early. Is that good or bad? I don't know. What I'm doing is I'm making mental notes of these because I'm looking for, in the future, the first time when me as the Terran falls apart, and then I'm going to try to see how I repair that by coming back to all these little things I made notes on earlier. So as I'm looking here, okay, so I see Liquid Huck doing all his shenanigans, but most notably, I mean, we're even in food. If you look, our worker counts are approximately equal. Protoss is ahead because he has Chrono Boost, but obviously Terran has his mules, so everything's fine and dandy in the world. But yeah. So we see these two bunkers getting constructed. I'm personally asking myself, were these two barracks a little early? I'm noticing I love the timing on the second tech lab because it allows us to pop out two ghosts kind of quick. Alright, great. I mean, everything looks pretty normal. I mean, Sige has not gotten supply blocked. He's building supply depots. I mean, there's these two idle SCVs. Again, that's not earth-shatteringly bad. Like, holy LOL, punch yourself in the head, you freaking newbie. Like, not going to overthink this, because right now, again, players are looking pretty even. As a matter of fact, we are actually ahead a little bit in the food. We're ahead by 1. If I come over to the Protoss base, I just want to get a brief look at what he's doing. Oh yeah, Huck looks like he's going for the Twilight Council with the Zealot legs and for the armor upgrade. This is a very popular style in Korea. Coming back to the Terran pieces. Speeding things up. Hitting a plus. So what are things that I've noted as little mental notes to myself? Did he make too many bunkers early? Did he get his tech lab too early? Did he get this Ghost Academy too early? Did he get this factory too late? And one last thing I want to note is that I have seen virtually no scouting go on by the Terran this entire game. Is there any way he could have forced this? Is there any way that he could have sent SCV scouts out? Well, a little bit unlikely. We see a supply depot going down. It's actually kind of a cute placement. So this is what I would call a big moment in gameplay. By the way, oops, whoa, wrong buttons. Big moment is not an official Sean definition. I like to create fancy definitions for particular moments in time, but this is just a big moment, an attack. This is when something deciding could occur in the course of the gameplay. So let's go ahead and pop it back into the game. So I'm going to slow it down because anytime I think there's a big moment going on when a lot of micro could be occurring, I want to be especially aware of it. I'm noticing that my ghosts are kind of far away, but I'm not going to make too big of a judgment. Man, those ghosts just did perhaps the worst job that any ghost could have ever done in their entire lives. Yeah, you know what? That attack went pretty horrifically for the Terran. I am not pleased with how that attack went. Now, what I always want to do after this is I want to re-look at the battle and see if Terran could have done something better. Before I do that, though, let me benchmark. Let me actually just get a look to see if I'm actually as far behind as I think. Well, I have to compare. Okay, Protoss has a good amount of unit-producing structures. He has some upgrades going. Doesn't have a third base. Am I gearing up to get my own third? Well, not really. Yeah, you know what? I'm honestly feeling like, as a Terran, I'm a little behind. Why? Worker count-wise, I'm not really behind in the worker count. I'm behind in production facilities. I only have 3 barracks, and I haven't even gotten my starport with my reactor up. I would like to have 5 barracks and be getting my third up. Don't only rely on the food. If we look at the supply count, it's 68 to 75. That's not as big as, you know, it's not like loss level, so a lot of people would look at that and be like, oh, it's still pretty even. But I want you to imagine for a moment if 2 people trade armies, so they both have no units, so they're both equal in food, but one player has maximum upgrades, 3-3 upgrades, and his opponent has 0-0 upgrades. The 3-3 player is obviously way ahead because they traded armies, so when they rebuild equivalently sized armies again, the 3-3 is going to just crush. So that's kind of what I'm looking at here. Huck is actually quite a ways ahead. in that regard. So, you know what? Let me back up to before this battle began. I don't think I backed up nearly enough, so let me just back up to the 10-minute and 30-second mark. So this big battle's happening. This could be the moment that loses the game. It may not be. I'm going to look at other things that could possibly be going on here that I could adjust building-wise. But I want to look at this for a moment. So I see that, you know, Protoss has all his stuff spread out quite a bit. Obviously, what Protoss is trying to do is prevent like an EMP from going down here and here and here and hitting big clusters. So he's spreading it out, you know, one sentry at a time. But what's a very good technique is to keep your ghosts actually, instead of running forward, is to keep your ghosts back, like right here. Keep your ghosts far back. And then, when all the zealots rush in, which we're going to see them do, then you EMP them. Ignore the ghosts here for a moment. Notice that there's a cluster here where we can hit, there's a cluster here, and there's a cluster here. But if we select some shields, we notice that basically not that much is really getting hit. So that was me looking at the ghosts. Alright, so you're going to see me rewind this a couple of times, which is very key to do. You always want to look at the biggest moment and study that the most. I breezed through this opening. I breezed through. I took extra time because I was trying to be expository in nature and focus a little on the Ghost Academy and focus a little on the factory. But most of the time I'm going to spend looking at this battle. Okay, I'm noticing Combat Shield is almost done. I'm going to ignore that. I want to look at... Did Stim go down okay? Let's look at these units. I was looking at the Ghosts in that second run through, but now that we're in the third one, let's look at these units. Did they Stim early or late? Well, there's no Stim going down yet. Ooh, this feels kind of big. Yeah, that's kind of a late Stim. This should have been Stimmed much earlier. Okay. There's an EMP going down that's pretty decently good. Keep in mind, Ghosts do huge damage to Zealots. Like that 20 damage a shot, and they actually shoot quite quickly. They actually shoot quite quickly. So you can obliterate a lot of these builds. But of course, with a Stalker count that high, it's easy cleanup central. So now that I've done this analysis, what I want to state to myself is something I'm going to do next time. You don't want to state something like, oh, I was late on my Stim. Yes, that is the problem, but then you want to state a solution. A lot of times they'll sound almost identical, but you still want to make sure that you state that. So for here, the problem was that the Stim was a little bit late. What I would say is I'm going to try, when I do this early push, to prioritize stimming over EMPs. I'm really going to try to make myself aware of that, because we could clearly see, if we re-watch through this, that this Terran player was prioritizing the Ghosts. We can see even, as you see the little dotted red around the Ghosts, the red Terran is actually selecting these Ghosts. He's prioritizing the EMP. And look, see, we see the EMP go off, Stim go down, and then another EMP go off. So that's the first thing I would say, is let's prioritize the stimming over the EMPs. And then the other thing is that upon getting a scan off, let's actually go back to the Terran, because we could clearly see Terran threw down a scan. Well, maybe not clearly. I'm pretty sure he threw a scan down. I think it's going to come up in a moment here. Yep, there's the scan. If you see your opponent spread out like this, pull the Ghosts behind the army, instead of trying to rush forward and just EMP 1 or 2 units. Because Ghosts are good when they clump, when they hit clusters of units instead of hitting just individual units. So notice what I've done is I've spent probably the last 6, 7, 8 minutes looking at one battle again and again and again and again and again. And now I have a future adjustment that I am going to make. I am going to be prioritizing Stim. I'm going to be thinking about my Ghosts a little more smartly in kind of an explicit way. When I'm having them be forward, when I'm having them be back. I've now analyzed what I think is the key losing moment in this game, and I have a good sense of how to fix this battle. One thing I want to note, though, if we come back to the game, I'm noticing that this Combat Shield is almost close to done. It's almost close to done, and yet, in this attack, we don't have it. This attack timing seems good, so I'm asking myself, can this combat shield come down earlier? This is a key moment that you really need to do, that a lot will not do, that you must. I'm going to look at these add-ons, and I'm going to see how these upgrades were going. So we end up getting our concussive shell. I mean, did we not have enough money to do it? I mean, it looks like our Ghost Academy is done. Have we made the ghosts yet? In the unit counting station, we see, yep, there's a 2 ghosts that just got made. So coming back could... What was the trigger for this attack? It looks like stim finishing. Is that accurate? When on Earth did Combat Shield get started? I'm not going to overthink it at the moment. I'm just going to keep going back and forth. Ugh. Yeah, Combat Shield appears to have gotten started quite late. So this is what I'm going to say to myself. I'm going to create an explicit way to fix this. I am going to use the same attack timing I did before, but I'm going to try to figure out a way to start my combat shield in a manner such that it is done when I do this push, because that's obviously going to help. So let me pull back just a little bit more. Let's look at our money when we do this. I'm going to state the following. When my tech lab finishes, I'm going to start concussive shell immediately, and right when it is done, I am going to start the combat shield upgrade. Let's see if that adjustment actually lines up. So my tech lab gets started. Let's see when it gets finished. Bum ba dum ba dum ba dum ba dum dum dum. Boom! Tech lab is now done. Concussive shell is 60 seconds. Combat shield is 110 seconds. So this is basically 3 minutes worth of time, a little less than 3 minutes. Notice that we are at 7 minutes and 40 seconds. The battle happened at 10 minutes and 30 seconds. So what all these calculations mean otherwise is that if I start concussive shell right when that tech lab finishes, and I start combat shield right when that concussive shell finishes, then I will absolutely have my combat shield during the attack. Now here is the most important thing to note. I did some calculation there. Oh my goodness, people tend to steer clear from calculation. I really hate calculating. I hate it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to calculate once, just to see if I can get a good answer, and then I'm only going to remember that answer. That's all I'm going to be doing. So, for instance, when I look at this, I just calculated and said, okay, great, if I do my same build, but don't forget concussive and don't forget combat shield, I will actually have it during this battle. And I just want to make sure I have the money to do it. Yes, I seem to have enough. I seem to have enough. I still have had enough this whole time. Yep. Yeah, I'm basically floating over 100 the entire time, so I can easily have snuck in a combat shield. Ooh, it looks like my factory might be delayed. That's fine. I'm fine with that. So as we come up to this battle, we can see, once again, at 10 minutes and 30 seconds, that's when my combat shield should be done, but instead it is not done. So now all of a sudden, this attack that would have been, I think, a lot better for me as Terran is going to go a lot worse because, oh my gosh, how many Marines is that? That's 20 Marines? So combat shield being late means I lost 200 health. Ugh. That's a lot of health to be down on. And then I lose my big battle. Gross. One last thing that I would want to note that I'm only going to just briefly gloss over because I don't want to spend too much time on just this one game. But I want to ask myself, could I have started any other buildings during this? We're going to see the move out. Look at how high the money is. I'm going to just read it out loud. Okay, it's low right now, but now it's over. I can build a barracks. I can now build 2 barracks. I can now build 2 barracks still. I can still have started 2 barracks. I can still have started 2 barracks. Yeah, I can actually start a starport and have those 2 barracks started. Yeah, yeah, I can still have started those 2 barracks because I'm floating over 300. That's the number I'm looking at. I'm over 300. So in this battle, while this battle's going on, I'm realizing, oh shit, I could have started 2 more production facilities. And then when I died in this battle, I would have had these 2 extra barracks up, and I could have maybe made a recovery from that point. There I go. So, I can tell you that Terran's going to lose this game. Let's just go ahead and wrap it up. And as we're seeing the game wrap up, I want to just reiterate all the brief little techniques we did. We did a lot of analysis that was all centered around our losing battle. And we asked ourselves things like in-battle control, our upgrades for the battle, all the other buildings that were being constructed during that battle. Look at poor Sige right now. Sige, or SYJ or whatever, he really can't even support enough defense. He's trying to get a command center up, but he just doesn't really have any units. And in a completely uneventful way, Huck is just going to storm the front for a win. Look, okay, Terran's going to be moving out. I love that scream from the Ghost. Look at how gigantic the Protoss army is, especially with those 5 DTs. I mean, just a killer big army. And there, the Dark Templar causing little problems again. I mean, by the way, this moment in gameplay is when mistakes happen in terms of analysis. This is a huge mistake. It's a huge mistake to look and to say something like, oh, those Dark Templars, I should have gotten turrets up earlier. Oh, next time I'll get turrets. No, 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 you already lost the game. The game is dead and gone. I mean, that is a big freaking mistake to do. Yeah, and see these ghosts trying to go off with their EMPs? I mean, it's so easy to think to yourself, oh, it's all the Dark Templars that are going wrong. You know, Protoss has this game won so easily. Look at all the units that are just stuck back there. DTs were just a formality. I mean, if you have detection, you're not going to stop this. So, that is the last little bit that I wanted to end on, just for this one first game, because, again, it is absolutely freaking essential that you look at the first moment in time when you lost, analyze that thoroughly, as we so did, and to ignore things like, oh, these scary DTs did damage to me later on, because, yeah, build missile turrets and make sure DTs don't kill you, but that's not the reason that you lost. That failed attack early on is the reason you lost. Let's go to a super quick game. Very, very quick, easy game. We have Mouse Sports Mana in the top left. We have Beastie Cutie in the bottom right. Yes. Alright, gonna drink myself some delicious coffee. Alright, sweet. And by the way, welcome to all you wonderful, fancy Europeans for waking up with me to watch this daily. That's right, we're being live at 9 a.m. How cool. How freaking cool. Now, let's actually do something swift. Let's go through the game quickly. I'm going to go through the game very quickly because I want the entire game to be fresh in your mind. Let's pretend that you were playing this game. You're going to have a broad image of what occurred in the game after you played it. So Mana went for a usual 1 gate, 2 gas. Looks like he's adding on some more gates. Oh, it is a DT tech. So we see the command center going down. Oh, he's now building himself a bunker and now a missile turret. He canceled the bunker to build a second missile turret, and then a bunch of Blink Stalkers came in and killed him. That is a short, simple game. That is a really short, really simple game. Let's come back and just look at a couple of things really fast. This is the sort of loss that I know a lot of people have. A lot, because I have these a lot. Especially a few months ago when I was playing a little more again, where, like, there's so many ways for people to just do a gimmicky, goofy kind of win that you need to... sorry, my mind. My mind. What's my mind doing? Here, mind. Let me give you some nectar. Let me try that again. Especially when I'd taken a break and I came back for a little bit of time. Or came back after a little bit of time. There's so many goofy, dumb ways that you can lose like this that it's important that you analyze these losses and make the appropriate adjustments. So, I mean, over here we see Beastie Cutie getting his usual 3 barracks up. Oh, yeah, okay. He canceled the bunker. He's getting missile turrets. And then it looks like he did scan and see the Dark Templar Shrine. And then he's just going to lose to Blink Stalkers, as we saw. This is the sort of loss that happens tons. Like, so much. This is the most common way to lose. I cannot emphasize this enough. Alright, sweet kick-ass, ballin'. Let's go ahead and look back at Beastie Cutie's play and see what went wrong. It might be something as simple as, let's build an extra bunker. It might be something as simple as changing the way we're going to play off our strategy. It might be something as complicated as not moving our command center down. So the SCV does manage to sneak in. It sees 3 gates, and it sees a Dark Shrine. So, what I'm going to note right now that I think is sort of a core part of this mistake is that Beastie Cutie's response emphasized the Dark Shrine. It did not, I think, take into account well enough all of these gateways. I think this is very common. I actually had a loss not that long ago where the following happened. I saw a Stargate go down, and I went, oh, he's going to get Void Rays. I have to prepare for the Void Rays. So I prepared my anti-air defense, but he also built 3 gateways and went 3-gate Zealot with that Void Ray, and it was the Zealots that really gave me the trouble. I had all my Marines available, and I had missile turrets in good spots, but I lost because these Zealots were just ruining my whole life. So it's important to sort of account for that. What does Protoss not have? That's the one thing that I want to emphasize. What does Protoss not have? What does he not have? What does he not have? As it turns out, Protoss does not have an expansion. That is the one thing that Protoss is going to be a little bit worse on, is expanding. Even if he goes 3 gates, cancels this, and goes for an expansion, he's still going to be a little bit behind on the big later game aggression, later game economy. I'm liking the fact that Marines are continuing to be built. I'm liking the fast tech lab. I don't actually mind that expand as much. But let's see here. Let's see here. We see an engineering base down. All right, well, that's obvious. We need the missile turrets. So there comes a point in time where you won't have all the answers for the later game. For instance, here, you're not trying to figure out specifically how you're going to win in an obvious way. You're trying to figure out a way to not lose right now. So what I'm going to do is propose the following adjustment. We're going to talk about it and then talk about why that's perhaps not a complete answer. So what I'm going to say is, if I see DTs and I see these 3 gateways going down, I'm going to build bunkers. I'm going to build missile turrets. I might even build a second bunker as well. And I am going to play very defensively. I am not going to try to move out with a ground army early on. I obviously cannot move out with a ground army early because he has DTs. The only way I would be able to move out is if I saved up a whole bunch of scans and attacked, but that just seems dumb. I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to propose that, yeah, I do something like favor upgrades. If he can't kill me with DTs and I can't attack him, then yeah, I'm safe getting my upgrades. I'm also safe going for something like medevac drops. I think are going to be fairly safe. I might run into some problems with Blink Stalkers, but I'm still going to try to go for that. Overall, though, what I'm going to emphasize is it's okay for me to be a little defensive early on, to overbuild bunkers and turrets, because hell, DTs are a huge ass investment and I'm going to be okay. And this has the added benefit of dealing with this sort of Blink Stalker play. So let's talk about that adjustment in a slightly briefer format. Get more defenses. Don't attack early on because he has Dark Templar. And this allows me to stay defended against both the DT and this Blink Stalker thing that I lost to. It is so important that I keep the Blink Stalker and the original DT in my head. It is critical I keep those in my head. Because the real horrendous mistake people will make with adjustment is say, stupid Blink Stalkers, next time I'm going to try to spot the Blink Stalker. Or next time I'm going to build a bunch of bunkers and make more Marauders to deal with the Blink Stalkers, and suddenly they're getting weaker and weaker against the DT tech. You want to have something that is like good against both. Cool. So the one thing that I haven't really gotten the chance to explore, though, and this is why my answer is perhaps incomplete, is that we don't know what happens after this adjustment. We're pretty sure it will let us not die. Next time I'm in this spot, I will make that adjustment, and I will not die, and all of a sudden I'm alive. What the hell do? I already know I'm not going to go for a regular early game ground attack. How does the follow-up occur? Well, that's for that game to answer. It is so important that you not try to plan for the whole... You don't want to plan for the universe. You just want to plan for a little star, said Sean in a very Shel Silverstein-esque fashion. Don't worry about making a huge sweeping fix. Just fix a little bit at a time in a clear way. And as long as you're analyzing enough, you're going to be in pristine shape. Let's go ahead and go into this next game. This next game, there we go, go into it. This next game is a very long game. And I want to talk about how important it is to analyze losses in long, long games. So what we have is we have Hey Pro from Team Liquid in the top right. We have Happy. I believe Happy's on Empire. He's in the bottom left. This is a long, long game. And I want to first breeze through it at ×8 speed. And because my computer is so beastly and boss, you can watch it at ×8 speed. Yeah. So Liquid Hey Pro is going to early expand, and he's going to be going for his typical fast Zergling speed upgrade. We're going to see the double Hellion opening out of Happy that he does very often. Roaches are able to defend. Happy is going to then transition into a very nice marine, tanky mixture with his upgrades, with getting more barracks, with getting his starports. Hey Pro is going to be getting himself a third hatch. We see him getting all the usual layer upgrades. He's getting speed for his banelings. He's getting speed for his roaches. The usual marine tank push from Happy does manage to kill off a third base. And Hey Pro seems to be at a little bit of an impasse, but Hey Pro is going to expand backwards. He's going to get his roaches and mutalisks to clean this up. And Happy, though it might seem like he did a big hit by killing off this Expo, is not ahead in food. And Happy actually went for this interesting 3-tank mix. So he goes for the 3-tank mixture. Or excuse me, the 3-factory tank mixture. We see him getting armories for upgrades. We see him getting all sorts of other goody-goodness for upgrades. And he's going to begin trying to push through the center of the map. And as I'm going through this little description, I want you to note when the first time you think Terran is really starting to fall behind. When Terran is really very clearly in a very bad spot. Part of me feels like about now is when I'm really disliking the Terran position, because Zerg is starting to have a whole lot of hatcheries, a ton of expansions, is getting the hive, continuing to harass. We have seen players like I Am MVP do wonders with 2 bases against like million bases Zergs, but we're going to see Liquid Hey Pro starts to do just Nidus network harass all over the place. Ew, yeah, sure, there's a drop going on, but now there's another Nidus worm in the main, and I think we can clearly pause right now and say, yuck, this does not look so good for our Terran buddy Happy. I mean, if we look over at the Hey Pro cam, Hey Pro is getting more Nidus networks going down. He has 1, 2, 3, 4, let's see here, 5, 6, 7, 8 geysers, 9, 10. Does he still have 11, 12 in the main? Oh, he just has 11. A good old 11 geyser Zerg. Ugh. This stinks. Yeah, so it's in a game like this we want to really try to hone in on what could have possibly gone wrong. And because this is like a bigger game, it's okay to do a more broad general answer. As you get better and better and better and better and better at this game of StarCraft 2, you can do a 30-minute game and think something like, gosh, I needed to get my combat shield 10 seconds earlier and I could have won. You can begin to say phrases like that, but only after a long-ass time. It's okay to just do some sort of big, broad analysis and just say, should I have done this or that? Because you want to be doing the big tweaks first. Because, you know, if you're saying, I need to get combat shield 10 seconds earlier, but you're on 3 barracks all game long, then that's probably bad. So I'm going to start going to big moment after big moment in this game, and this I actually would call the first big moment, when this first big attack occurred for the Terran. Because at this point in the game, I mean, sure, some Hellions were lost because they were running about the map. Alright, that's great news, but Happy is moving out. Notice his combat shield is almost done. He's being very careful with this engagement, and I think that I'm comfortable saying that this is brilliant timing by Happy. To have this combat shield out in time. His Marines are only taking damage after they actually do have combat shield done. And he is continuing to make this very aggressive push forward. That feels a little risky for me to have those 25 hit point Marines. But this feels good to me. Also in this battle, I'm noticing, why is Zerg ahead in food? I mean, as we can clearly see, given my gigantic resource panel... That's actually the wrong one. Where is it? There we go. That's not the one I want either. Look, just look here. Look over here at this food. Oh, there we go. That's the one. Hey Pro's ahead by 100 food. or ahead by 15 food. He's at 100. In production, though, I do notice 10 roaches, so I'm not that concerned about that food lead. Roaches are very gas expensive. Very supply expensive. So Happy, back home, he still has a low amount of unit-producing structures. Is he getting any upgrades? Kind of would like to see some upgrades, but I don't know if that's actually true, because we're going to have to see when Happy's next battle is. If the next battle occurs and Happy is behind on upgrades, then that's something that I'm going to look for. Did Happy perhaps not pull back quickly enough? Well, I think Happy smartly is realizing that he's just not going to be able to have these units up for long. Happy actually could have run away, and I think a retreat is probably a good idea here. Perhaps doing something even like pulling back here and trying to medevac his way back home. He has yet to see any kind of mutalisks. So I guess I would go for that. I guess I would say something like, after I do a kill like that with an early Marine tank medevac push, I mean, that's such a common early Terran push that I think I can safely say I want to look for more opportunities to retreat afterwards. I mean, honestly, this timing is so good. I'm not going to criticize the timing or the control for Happy because that was very crisp. In the midst of this attack, getting up an additional expansion, I like that. Getting up these two factories, this might actually be a big reason that Happy ended up not winning this game, is that he got these extra factories up. Yeah, this feels pretty significant of a bump. Double engineering bay. I don't have enough gas to get both upgrades started. 3 factories. 2 of them are actually not producing. Are there any upgrades I'm missing? No, it looks like I have all those gas upgrades. It looks like missile turrets are obviously getting planted in the main. I would actually say I should not be building this extra factory here. I actually think it's safer to say I need to be going for maybe 1 engineering bay, maybe 1 extra factory, maybe just getting double engineering bays and extra barracks. I'm going to end up choosing 1 for whatever I want my adjustment to be. It's not necessarily something that I'm going to have like a clear answer for right now. I honestly am kind of indifferent towards the upgrades versus the bigger mech play. I like Thor's a lot, so. Either way, you would end up making a statement like, I will not get 2 factories after I do a big scary push. So this thus far seems pretty damn good for Happy. He's building a lot of missile turrets. I think that that's okay, given how extremely dangerous Mutalisks have been for Terrans lately. Might be a little bit of an overstim on those Marines. Might just want to have selected like 10 and stimmed them. But thus far, things are seeming okay. So right now, all I've really said adjustment-wise is I want to do a little bit more retreating when I pull back these medevacs. Or when I do a push that has a medevac, I want to try to use it in terms of the retreat. And I want to not build so many gas-heavy things after I expand, or after I attack. So good, I have some clear adjustments on the table. Clear adjustments that I have labeled. And I still don't feel like Happy has made some sort of huge key mistake yet. There might be a key mistake battle incoming. However, I always want to emphasize that during big moments of transition in the game, look at those a lot. Battles, interaction with your enemy. Those are the big moments. So we're seeing Happy move out smartly right when he has a +1 upgrade. And he's doing this great medevac here to stim and kill this off while he pushes up to the top side. This is great army positioning by Happy. Great, 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 great. I really think he should siege up. Oh, he's making me nervous because he's not sieging up enough. Getting this spotted is a little unfortunate, but we are going to see Happy just push for the expansion. If he can't kill off one base, he's going to try to kill off the other one. You always want to just try to be killing off at least one. It looks like Happy is going to succeed in doing this. So again, I'm liking what Happy's doing. These factories still don't seem very active to me. I mean, the upgrades are going down, but man, yeah, I'm really feeling like maybe Happy overproduced, but that still doesn't feel like the main reason he lost. It's still enough to say that an adjustment should occur. And we have a lot of missile turrets in the main base. Did this do a lot of damage? This is a big moment coming up, I'm feeling. Happy, uh-oh, looks like he sieged up a little bit late. That seems huge. A lot of damage dealt to those tanks. Yuck! Oh, man, yeah, that is feeling very, very significant. Wow. Yeah, so that I would label as a key fixable problem in that play. Ugh. Blah. Blah. Blurky blur. Yeah, I think I rewound a little bit too much, but that's fine. Is when the mutals pop into the main. Anytime you're on creep, don't just box tank move forward. We see this scan. We see actually not that many feeling of Zerg units. It doesn't really feel like so many. But of course, when we get caught, pinned off guard, we're stimming, we're running behind the tanks. No additional shots. Our tanks aren't spread out. Marines way far at the back, only now beginning to engage once all our tanks are gone and dead. This feels like significant enough of a moment that I would just be like, ugh, yeah. That would probably be the significant moment in gameplay for me. So, honestly, I'm not going to spend that much time on the later stages. We're going to end up popping in and taking some questions. But I think this gives you a good sense of this whole process of when you look at your loss, going back to the first moment and spending a good bit of time on it. And especially at moments of big interaction, spending a lot of time on it. Now, the one thing that I have not talked about the whole daily is the gameplay after you make that first key mistake. The whole daily's focus has been, when do I make the first big mistake? How do I adjust and make that not happen next time? It is okay to split your mental energy between how do I fix all my mistakes and then how do I make comebacks once I am behind. It is important to note that you should not be leaving games when you're at a disadvantage just because you're thinking, yeah, I shouldn't be making those mistakes. It's absolutely fine to say something like, alright, well, I'm totally screwed. How do I get back in this game? Let me try sending out 3 medevacs at a time and see how 3 medevacs at a time ends up working. That's great to do, and I have no problem with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some questions. And again, you have a few more hours to submit your StarCraft 2 Brood War mod games because I want to see how people experience and enjoy the B-dub. What might end up happening for that is I record it early and then it just gets played on record, but it'll still be at 7 p.m. Pacific. Yeah. So, alright, feel free to ask me questions. Yes. I mean, scratch my nose. Oh, that feels so good. Okay, cool. Here's a great question from Rambros, or R. Ambrose01. This is day 9. Mid-game, I feel I have too many minerals and gas. How do I keep it from getting too high? This is actually a very, very common problem that a lot of people in gold will have, gold in that range-ish, is that they just have too much money. And how the hell do I fix it? Always work on a few things at a time. Just a few things at a time. Don't go crazy, because I have tried to do this before, and not only does it stress me out to try to keep too much in my head at once, but I also improve much slower. If you do focused practice on a thing at a time, yeah, you're going to be in good shape. You're going to be in good shape. Covering up my pit stains. So, for the minerals and gas from getting too high, Ambrose, what I want you to do is I would like you to play your games where your only focus is macro. I'm talking 10 games where you say, I'm going to lose these games. There is no way I'm going to win, but you know what? My minerals, by God, my minerals will be low. And what I want you to do is just focus on building a good amount of unit-producing structures in your main, building your army, and then boxing your army, hitting attack, and having them go to the opponent, and do not even look at the battle. Don't watch it on the mini-map. Don't watch it on the main screen. Just macro. And while you're macroing, try to do good techniques. Try to be macroing with your keyboard, right? So let's say you're a Terran player, and you have 5 barracks making Marines and Marauders, and you have a starport making medevacs. Box your Marines and Marauders and hit go. So now they're going off. They're going to die. You're going to lose this game. You don't care. But then in your base, I want you to be hitting 5 DDDDAA, 6 DD for more medevacs, right? Just like keep on using just your keyboard hand to do all that macroing. That is super important. And by the way, one thing I want to note that's weird, I suddenly feel like I don't know what the hotkey for a medevac is. That's so weird because I've been playing Terran and going only Marine Marauder medevac in the last week. But I guess my hands know it. Let's assume that it is D. Yeah, wow. I know E's Banshee. Man, what a brain fizz out. You know, the worst brain fizz out actually happened a few days ago when I couldn't remember if Diamond or Platinum was higher. Whatever. Yeah, just work on one thing at a time. It's absolutely, totally okay to be able to get yourself some losses while working on that. Because this weird thing will happen where then after those 10 games, you'll be like, all right, I have good macro. And you'll go back and you'll still focus on battles and your macro will mess up. It'll slip. Things will go wrong. But it won't be as bad. It will not be as bad. It will actually be pretty solid. So, Raziel ZP says, Dear Day 9, in that last game, HeyPro had thousands of resources in the bank. In this context, does the mistakes you point out really matter? So to expand on that question, it's like saying, okay, so we're focusing on all this stuff that Happy's doing, what he could have done right or wrong, but Zerg had so much money, it seemed like Zerg was going to be able to flood with a ton of units anyways. I will just state that in practice, Zerg can have huge amounts of resources, but because they're stuck in mid-game and they're making inefficient units, Terran can maintain an even footing with them. One of the greatest examples is Idra versus IMMVP on Shakuras Plateau. Artosis casted that. I think you can find that game at youtube.com/ArtosisTV for a cast of that game. Idra just had so much money but couldn't quite manage to crack MVP. It actually ends up being just fine. So I actually wouldn't worry about that too much. And I think that's an important question to ask because that's a hard question to answer without a lot of broad game knowledge. Questions like, how do I hold off Blink, Stalker, or DT, not knowing what he's going to do? Well, you can answer that within the game, not knowing what else is going on. That one requires a little bit of extra knowledge. Give an answer that you can. It's always good. Let's take one more question, and let's wrap it up. This has been a wonderful EU Daily. I've had an absolute delight. What an absolute delight that has been going on. Oh my god, there's 10,000 viewers. That is the highest viewership I've ever had for a non-fun day Monday. Wow, I should start doing Euro dailies. Let's take one more question. One more frickin' question. One more question. Here is a great question by Rave Break. One of the greatest things ever. Dear Day 9, what is the best way to avoid getting stressed out after a match that hasn't gone too well? This is one of the most important questions ever because StarCraft should be fun. You notice that I seem to derive incredible delight playing StarCraft and talking about StarCraft and even losing in StarCraft. And that is because I have the good coping mechanisms for dealing with that nasty flood of adrenaline that has plagued me for many years past. First, most important thing to note, when you feel frustration in the game, it is almost always because of the chemical adrenaline that is in your system. Have you ever been playing that really intense match and you feel your face, the temperature is like changing a lot and your hands get really cold and you feel that flood of electricity through your body? Hello, you've just met adrenaline. And when all that adrenaline is shooting in your system or shooting out, it causes chemical imbalance that actually just makes you feel bad. In other words, I could give you a pill that would make you feel the same way. And it's important not to overreact to it and to overthink it. It's like if you have had a huge long day with no sleep, what you do is you're nice to yourself. When you're exhausted, you don't say, well, yeah, I've got to do my homework tonight. You just say, yeah, I'll just go to sleep and get up tomorrow morning and do it when I'm feeling rested. A lot of times what happens is after a loss, you make your brain think about the game. You're just like, oh, what could I have done better? Oh, that guy's so stupid. Oh, just make your brain not think about the game for 20 minutes until your adrenaline and the chemicals in your body have hit an equilibrium. If I have a frustrating loss, I actually just step away from my computer and clear my head and just think about something totally different. Get a TV show that you really like, and after a frustrating loss, open up an episode of that TV show on Netflix and watch it. And then when it's done, then go back and think about the game. In this way, you can still analyze and still improve, and everything's still so good, but you're not getting it clouded with all this frustration and all this sort of negative, gross, nasty emotion. There are other techniques that you can do that can help a lot. One technique is that when I'm feeling frustrated at a loss, like I'm feeling like, oh, I shouldn't have lost that game, it's really easy to impulse Alt-Q and just get out of the game and start storming around. Leave the game slowly. Let a lot of buildings die. Even, here's a great one, message your opponent and ask him for advice, or just talk to him about the game, and you'll actually feel better when you exit the game. And most importantly, it's fine. Do not beat yourself up if you're feeling frustrated after gameplay, because if you're beating yourself up for feeling frustrated, you're going to get more frustrated and beat yourself up more, and you'll be in a terrible, vicious cycle where you are self-hating, and you'll be miserable. And how do I know? Because I did it plenty in my young career when I was playing Brood War competitively a lot. Be really nice to yourself. Be nice, be gentle, and have fun. And when you analyze your losses, take joy in the learning of your improvement, less so than the joy of going up in the ladder, because learning's awesome. I'm going to wrap up this daily. Thanks so much all for tuning in. I'm going to go. Goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.